This is Carrie O'Donnell from Tarot Soul Writer, and today I have my good friend Dani Doucette here to discuss Mother Earth and what's up with her energy. So Dani, welcome back to my show. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Carrie. And I'm feeling a little bit giddy as we prepare to jump into this conversation. I have to tell you before this morning I was pulling my cards for the day, and I did my own thing, and then I just thought I would just say, okay, how is this like off the cuff call with Carrie going to go? And you will love that I pulled a 3 of Cups.
Yay!
So that means just very like natural and swimming and flowing. So there, 3 of Cups. We're going to start with that.
3 of Cups. Hi, Earth Mama. So just say hi to some people who are showing up.
Oh, wow.
To say hi to Earth Mama, too. She has the greatest name for today's topic, which is all about Earth energies. Thank you for showing up.
Oh, I'm watching. It says, okay, now I'm scared.
And, I haven't seen Dani like all summer because I was doing a lot of transitional things. So how was your summer? What's going on in your world, in your business?
How was my summer? In my business? Well, I mean, I do my thing. I just Carrie, in terms of my healing business, I don't really call it a business. I think it's a vocation, and it's a form of expression. And it's just I just like shine the light. Like one of the things that like my own guides tell me is just shine the light, and like they'll see it, or they won't see it. Whoever's meant to see it will see it. And I've been really loving YouTube. As you know, I'm relatively new to the YouTube space. So I've been the business of experimenting and figuring out what gets the eyeballs and what gets the likes and clicks, all that kind of good stuff. But otherwise, like my summer in terms of just slipping even into the theme of our show, I was just telling you a minute ago, I'm a very avid gardener. And I have lots of like rose bushes and butterfly bushes and like easy stuff. And it's been interesting to watch the summer progress because my garden's been kind of sad and sick. And I actually have always had very healthy plants and greenery, and like the blooms are great. And there's some of that is just like maintenance and doing the right things. But there was something strange this summer, Carrie, that was just a little bit like a fever. I feel like my garden had a fever this summer.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we both live in the same part of the country. We're in the Northeast. And normally our summers are dry. By July, usually the hot weather comes in. I would say traditionally we're more worried about drought. Right. We don't get much rain in the summer. And as we move into the fall, the early fall, it's our most beautiful time, the harvest season. I think of it as our driest, maybe best time. Right. And I kind of felt like we had way more rain than usual. I know in the real North Country, they're just flooded, like slammed, like crazy stuff. I don't remember crazy stuff, but I know even in my area, we've had rivers overflow, lots of flooding damage, just over. I'm wondering if it's the plant's reaction to maybe a shift in how much water we got. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. I mean, we're all waterlogged. It's been very steamy as well. I mean, there has been very humid and steamy, and I mean, it last summer was also not the greatest. I mean, I think we can all see.
I agree.
The pattern. In our own brief lifetimes, we can see the change. We'll talk about this more, I know, later in the episode. But besides that, I mean, there's also been this is really odd. I just thought about this just now, but the wind has been different this summer. I live right on the water. I live on Ocean Bay, and so I'm accustomed to. So during the day, because of the way that the afternoon, because of the way that the heat, as the continent heats up, it causes there to be rush of wind off the water inward. And now that I'm saying this, you Gary, like I feel like the wind patterns were different this summer than they've been.
Interesting.
It wasn't as much. Maybe it was all the dampness, the wetness. It changed the way that the the earth breathes. If I can make that connection to like the, like earth as a person. So that's another thing I've noticed. Yeah, in the wind.
And Earth Mama said that she's in Jersey, it looks like. She says Jersey has been strange too. And
Yeah.
I mean, she's also in that same quadrant. Like, I think different quadrants of the United States are experiencing different kinds of changes.
Yeah.
But before we kind of go into that and what that means, I wanted to kind of go back to your beginnings, because I know when we grew up, you had always made mention of how you would walk in the woods until your mother could call you back.
Right.
And I was a little woods girl myself. I kind of lived in the forests by the ponds. So, what was your connection to the earth when you were younger, and how has that evolved and changed as you moved into maturity?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, one thing that first comes to mind is I was a different kid. I was a little bit different. And so, and I lived right up against what I used, well, my childhood home, like yours, was up against like woods. Now there's more houses behind there, but I used to, on a daily basis when I was a small kid, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. Um, I was kind of like a loner. My brothers would be playing with the other kids in the neighborhood, and I would a lots of times just go wander off into the woods. So it actually was a place of safety for me, like being alone in the woods. I like covered by the trees, just the smells, the quiet,
Yes.
a place of safety for me. Um, I used to try to stay as late as possible because I liked the way that I'm also like the dark. I like nighttime. So I would oftentimes try to be out too late because I mean, I like the sun, I like the beach, all that kind of business, but I tend to be more like a dark person in terms of like, I don't mind the wintertime, right?
Yeah.
I like when it's like the sun's going down. So like I would say like the darkness of the woods, like especially, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon when
Yeah.
things are really getting still. So I think it was that place of safety. I wasn't. Um, I became a gardener, later in my adult life, and it was almost as if that was like a reawakening of that connection. Because in the in between time, as so often we might lose that connectedness and go off and we're working and being busy professionals. So yeah, safety is what comes up for me when and like usual, I almost started to cry when I started to talk about it. So
No.
I'm like a big crier. You asked that question, it like already pushed my buttons. You already yeah,
Crying already. Wait a minute. There's
yeah,
no crying on my show. No,
yes.
only kidding.
Let me tell you, sister.
I just wanted to say hi to the Crone Zone, Conversations with the Ancients. Thank you for showing up. And I wanted to say, like, I understand your feeling of safety. I think for me, it was just this sense of, I mean, I don't think I consciously understood that when I was younger, but I'd go off on these hikes, or I'd look for birds, or I'd pick wild blueberries. That would be my day. I'd pack a lunch and I would just explore like all the paths and, you know, go by I was a pond girl. So we get frogs, we collect tadpoles and watch them turn into frogs. All of that, because we lived in kind of a marshy area. Um, I do understand the feeling of safety, but I also felt very in tune with. I think it was spirit, but I don't think I consciously would
Right,
have understood that. But
right,
it was just kind of like a time where I was just listening to my inner self
right.
and being myself. Because like you said, I was also a weird girl. You
Yeah,
know, it's not like I was in the popular crowd. So I think it was a way for me to kind of tune into myself
yeah,
just unconsciously.
right,
And I will say though, as I grew older, um, I started to return to that, which is interesting. As I found myself, I started to return to nature. I think I got away from that sort of earth, like being grounded in the earth, as I like was young adult and busy raising children. But as I've gotten older, I've had a reconnection, which
Right.
is kind of interesting to me.
Right. Right.
So,
I would say also, aside from the forest, so for me, it's like two, not extremes, but two contrasting places. Because again, we've been seeing. I live on the water, and I see Earth Mama lives on the water. I
yeah,
like, for me as a child, and even as an adult now, um, like diving into ocean waves, just like diving into ocean waves and diving, and I love it when they're like huge, strong,
huge. Yeah,
like overpowering, and you dive into that wave like full throttle, and then you, when you're suddenly beneath the surface, then it's like, again, safe, and like enveloping and like cradling you almost, yeah.
right.
I gotta go swim now after
I
we
know. Go swim. I'm going to the beach.
yeah, yeah.
So when did you notice changes compared to, and I will say, just to kind of add, I have these memories of just so much wildlife. We had foxes. I remember this moment with a pheasant, and it was a beautiful male pheasant he was in a field, and I came upon him as a child and just watched him walk through. I don't think I've ever seen a wild pheasant in my area again.
Right,
There was, I think, just so much that I observed.
right,
And now I'm not observing as much wildlife or different wildlife. I'm noticing things like bears are starting to come down
right,
this far when
right.
we never saw them, but then there are other animals I've never seen. So I'm starting to see a shift in the patterns of the animals that I see,
Yeah,
and the bird life, especially because I'm a bird watcher. There are
right,
certain birds I don't see anymore.
right. My parents talk about birds. I notice lack of butterflies, like less butterflies,
Oh, I never even thought of that. Yeah.
less bees.
Yes, definitely less bees.
Again, my parents talk about the birds. But Carrie, I'm back to, actually, what I just was realizing is this is a little ray of hope. I'm going to inject a ray of hope into this before we get into the rest of the conversation.
Ray of hope.
So think about the experiences that we had just a few years ago in the early days of the pandemic, during the lockdown, when like everything was locked down, right?
Right.
So again, I live on this ocean bay, and what was remarkable to me was, in the matter of like a month, maybe 2 months, observing the change in, because I can see out my window in the morning or the late afternoon when like like schools of fish are in the bay,
Right.
and just because now there's no boats, there's no noise, there's no annoying humans like messing, right?
Yeah.
Um, it was like a very stark rebound, and you probably have read stories
Yeah,
about,
I've read some articles on this.
bears and antelope or whatever, like, uh, being caught on cameras in like downtown Denver or something like that. So I guess what I'm saying there is that the pandemic, which sucked for us, was a little sliver of hope for me, in the sense that like the natural world around us will very quickly like reassert itself,
Reassert.
if
Yeah.
we get distracted for 1 second. 1 second.
Right.
1 second, meaning 3 years. Um, is 1 second really in a span of like meaningful time? And one of the things I have written on my page of notes here is the word time.
Tell me.
Time, time, with a big giant circle around it. Of all of my notes I have in front of me, it's time. As we have this discussion around like what's up with the earth, and what are we doing to it, and how are we going to recover from it? We have a very limited, tiny, itty bitty perspective as human beings about time, right? And ultimately, whatever's happening to the environment, whatever's happening, whatever harm we are inflicting to this earth, to me, if there's a message of hope, it's that the changes that you and I noticed in our little lifetimes of 50 something years thus far it's not even a blip it's not even a blip,
It's not even a blip.
not even a blip. And after 3 months of a pandemic lockdown, all of a sudden the bay outside of my window is like full of fish again, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the hopefulness is that, um, while we all have responsibility to do our best to not continue to fuck up. I just said it, Carrie. The environment. Sorry, everyone. Have the F
I
in.
gave you permission. I said if the F-bomb comes out, it's okay. It's
Okay.
okay.
Mess up the environment. The earth, this earth that we're on, like this is the other message I have. All these things that we're doing to it, or to her, if we want to call it a her, the wind changing, the earthquakes or the hurricanes, like the surface of the earth that we live in is like this skinny layer. It's just like a shawl. It's a shawl, and we are causing the shawl to be damaged or whatever. We're damaging the shawl, and she's just like adjusting. Like, what's so uncomfortable and scary for us
Yes.
that like actually that results in death and destruction is just the earth going like this and adjusting her shawl because we're messing it up. That's it.
That's it.
It's a planet. It's a gigantic planet. And we're out here like despairing because like we are in a world of pain with the damage that we're causing, but the earth is just like, I gotta adjust my shawl.
Right. Right.
That's either hopeful or that's not hopeful.
Right. Right. As the crone's own. F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb.
What is this? Okay. I hope that's a good thing. I hope that's a good F-bomb.
No, but it's true. Like you were talking a lot about just the fact that a lot of spiritual people, we want to make her seem like a person, Mother Earth, and we want to heal her and we want to fix her and all of this. You have a really like reality-based view. It's cause and effect. I think that's what you're saying.
Right.
It's just a planet. It's the planet's going to get itself in balance, as much of the bodies in the universe will do the same.
Right.
And that's it. And it's not like we caused it. Like we caused her to shift her shawl.
Right.
It's really back on us.
Right.
So let me ask you, do you think that this is too far gone? Have we done too much damage? Like, what's your opinion on this as far as is this adjustment period?
Right. Well, again, so I did, when you invited me to do this session, I've done I think 3 or 4 spirit journeys, just to kind of like, upper realm, lower realm, middle realm, to get some messages, right? And the very first time that I did a journey on this, and this is always what I go with, right? Like whenever you're inviting spirit to communicate, my take on it is like whatever, like the earliest hit, right, is, at least for me now, what I trust the most, because what comes after that, right? Like if I did like the first journey and I got this message, which I'll share in a minute, which is not really all that encouraging, right? Then I'll say, okay, 2 days later, I'll do another journey and see what I get now. It's like if you do your tarot, you're doing a tarot draw. You don't like those cards, so you draw more cards until you get a good, right?
Try to get the answer that you want. But you're right. It's the first answer that's the right answer, whether you want to hear it or not.
Right. So the very first time that I did the journey last week about this, the message really was, and I will not use F-bombs, but listen, so with a little bit of attitude. And again, this is me anthropomorphizing. I want to take a time out and say, when I do journeys where I'm connecting with so I'm an animist, right? So I believe that there's spirit in everything, right? But connecting with like a tree or certainly the earth or a planet, it's not like a verbal conversation, right? It's our consciousness, our human consciousness, doing its best to then translate through symbol and word, which is a very sloppy way. It's the only way we can do it, right? But that's our sloppy way of translating it. So I'll tell you how I translate it in my own, Dani, sassy, Aries rising way. Okay. But the message was, I don't know what you're fucking worried about. I am a planet. I am like in my inside, I am like as hot as the sun. I'm made of metal, right? Metal and ore, right? I've been here way longer than you little humany people have been here, and I'm gonna be here way longer than after you all are done, right? So
Right,
seriously, I'm fine, right? The problem here is that you have messed up again that gossamer layer of ozone and air and water on the surface. Like the Earth doesn't need the water on the surface. Like she does, like a planet can over the course of its lifetime take on many different forms and shapes, right? We study the moon, we study different planets, and we
right.
wonder was there water on the surface of Mars once upon a time, right?
Which is actually one of the big questions.
And maybe there was. So from the planet's perspective and the perspective of time, she, if we want to call her she, is like, don't worry, right? Like the worry is for you and how you're treating yourselves. I mean, you can worry about how you're treating the butterflies and the elephants and the giraffes and the, because they're suffering too. Like the life forms are suffering, right? So I feel like to some degree, Carrie, the message is like narrowing down, not romanticizing like that we're harming Mother Earth. Like we're doing harm to that safe place in the forest that I found when I was a child, right? Or
Yeah,
that safe place in the ocean, right? That's what we're damaging. I don't think that in my lifetime or yours or our grandchildren's lifetimes, um, the sick garden that I've experienced, that's not going to change for several generations. It will take, again, perspective of time.
yeah,
We all start to change our ways and better our ways in the next century. um, Earth adjusting her shawl, right? That's like 500 years. Like this is like 500 years
right.
of adjustment, right? So it's a long-term game, and whatever inconvenience and suffering we're going to have now, it's not going to change for us. So that's my not so hopeful message. So
Yeah, I just wanted to say hi to Val S, who came into the chat. Thanks for watching.
we'll get more positive in a second, right?
I was saying to Danny backstage, and I've also done a lot of meditation, a lot of soul writing. And I ask those questions because I'm just a person living on this planet. And of course, I want to be able to eat and have those safe places and have that for my grandchildren and so forth. So there is a little bit of fear. But when I asked about the changes that we're seeing and the changes that are accelerating, my answer always is we are past the point of no return of the damage that we've done. In other words, we can't stop these changes from occurring. We can't stop her from adjusting her shawl. It's too late. Like maybe like 20, 30 years ago, if we had made a few changes, maybe the damage would have been a little less or that adjustment would have been a little less. But I actually do get over and over that we are past that point. Like we can't go back and like fix things and make things how they were, how I might have remembered the pheasant in the field. Okay, the pheasant isn't coming back, that kind of thing. So and I was saying to you, you know, let's give them some hope. That's why we're making jokes with a sliver of hope but I think that there is still hope because what we have to do is shift our perspective. It's not about, like you said, healing Mother Earth, but how can we heal ourselves
Right.
spiritually with our relationship to the planet?
That's it.
I mean,
That's
that's it. And no matter what happens, like we're beings too. She shifts, we're going to shift.
right.
We have to shift. We're going to find a way to survive. The survival instinct is very strong.
Right.
So that's scary because change is scary. But eventually, we're going to be up against the wall. It will happen one way or another. We're going to adapt.
Right. I again, in an effort to shift back to some hopefulness, and I want to know if you're going to do some cards soon because now
I will. I am.
but so of course I know that you're a writer. I've been writing. I started writing a novel, for myself about 3 years ago. It's taken me forever to get through it. but this book takes place in the year 2134. So it's a little over 100 years in the future. And I'm just now realizing as we have this conversation, it's been for me actually like a long-term kind of meditation. Every time I sit down to write this story that I'm writing, it actually is largely focused on what I'm imagining to be a change in humankind's relationship. I love that you brought up that word because that's what our spirituality is about anyway, is about our relationship with everything around us, including the essences that we can't, you know, actually put in a suitcase and carry away, right? Right. Um, so in this story, again, to try to introduce more hope here, I mean, I do believe that if we cannot be so full of ourselves over the next century or so, the kinds of changes that will happen in the global system, the economic system, it is going to largely, the system that we know it as we know it today will be largely dismantled. I actually believe 100 years from now, that long distance travel, Carrie, will be all that common for different reasons. One of them is environmental control reasons. One of them as well is AI business. What I've been foreseeing in that 100-year forward cast is that we'll be able to, like, within our own little localized area, be so adequately entertained with, just virtual entertainment, right? That the desire for travel will be largely reduced. So I actually think that the next uh, the next 50, 60 years are going to like super suck. Um,
I,
we get about 100 years out, things will have started to change, and the relationship will begin to mend itself, right?
mhm.
But again, it'll be like a long reconciliation, I think, of centuries, really.
And as you were telling that story about your sort of future feelings and predictions, I'm actually putting out some cards, kind of like what my guides want to say about, say, 50, 60 years out, even to 100 years. And one of the things I am getting is that Page of Pentacles here.
Uh-huh.
And I just have this sense of that innocent. It's funny, we talked about our life as children and our connection. And you kind of get that feeling here with her. But I also feel like it represents us as a species.
Uh-huh.
Kind of like compared to the earth, we're little children. We're little innocent children. Let's get a smokestack. Let's build a factory. Let's dump all of these toxins into the ocean,
Right.
because children don't really think out the consequences of their action.
Right.
But there is a form of innocence, and I feel like we're coming to terms with that we're moving into our maturity, or at least our teenage years as a species. I do get Temperance, that the earth is going to balance itself. I mean, that's exactly what we're getting there. And King of Cups. Honestly, I'm getting like the strong water part of this card. Honestly, I feel like water is going to be the biggest issue in the next 50, 60 years. When you say the period where it's going to suck, I think it's going to be about flooding. I think it's going to be about sea rise. I think that that's going to bring on the biggest change for us. And then as an ending, I get the Hermit card, kind of going within, trying to gain more inner wisdom. The Moon card, which I want to ask you about because I do get something literal here. And the Three of Swords, pain. There's pain and suffering, loss. Again, I keep getting like the moon with its tides, but there's also a sense of the intuitive going within in order to deal with the inflicted pain, both on what we did to the earth, but in a sense that's come back on us. Right. It's like what we've inflicted on the earth it's like a boomerang. It just comes back on us. Right. That we're going to be dealing with that. The Moon card makes me want to ask you that question, because you were talking about, because it's the fall, birthday fall, and with the equinox. Can you like explain something about that to the readers? Because like me, what do I know about astrology?
Oh, Well, today the moon is still well, okay. So a couple things. So the moon is in the last degrees of Sagittarius today, and we have the first quarter moon today this afternoon. And for me, at least in my practice, the first quarter moon is has to do with threshold of initiation. So, and what I love is that when you combine the idea of initiation with Sagittarius, which is this mutable fire sign, and has a very long, is like the wanderer and has a very long range, long distance view. So we're talking about time, right? And in this conversation around our relationship with the earth, maybe we are still at the beginning of our journeys as a race, right, as a species, and so this is a moment to really recollect ourselves and reinitiate our relationship with earth and with nature around us. That's a very powerful theme that I have today around how we would meditate on this moon in Sagittarius. Now tonight is the equinox, and when the equinox arrives, I love that we're having this conversation about the Earth, because at the moment of the equinox, the moon will be in Capricorn, which is the cardinal Earth sign, and of course, Capricorn is a very is like a worker bee energy, right? So it's almost like the Sagittarius is having us reinitiate our long-term sense of commitment and relationship with the earth and with nature around us, and then the equinox is like the moment of balance, rebalancing um, in the sign of Capricorn. So I think this is just a really powerful moment, Carrie, that you, again, serendipitously happen to pick today for our conversation around the Earth. Um,
And
yeah.
Earth Mama was saying, isn't it the official fall today? Was it like 12 hours from now? Is that what you said?
We all have, I guess, different resources that we use to look up the times and places of like the numerical calculations. I use time passages, and when I checked it, the equinox is around 2:05 a.m. Eastern time in the U.S. This coming evening, but it's all of how you calculate it, I suppose. Yeah.
I just want to address the sound feedback. It's Dan's fault. It's all Dan's fault.
Okay.
We were having some problems earlier in our practice, so it might have something to do with our microphones.
But
We'll try to
we
fix
corrected
things.
it.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll try to fix things the best we can. I apologize for that. It was a lot worse before. So
I have my echo cancellation on.
okay, echo cancellation's still on, so we'll do our best.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So did I answer your question, Carrie? I mean, yeah. You're asking
I
about
did.
the moon and a little bit of astrology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know Valerie's laughing. And I actually, the other thing that had come up with the moon, which I don't think we addressed yet, but I had talked to you earlier about it, that a lot of people are making a connection between the new moon and dramatic earth events. Like, for example, if there was a major earthquake, when was the big one? Was that Morocco? There was a new moon association, or if that wasn't the event that I'm thinking of, there was something like that. So people are wondering if there's a connection.
I mean, so I had not noticed that at all. It doesn't surprise me if there is that notable pattern there. I mean, the new moon to me well, it's death and rebirth, right?
Yeah.
So this is again, if there's like a collaboration happening, again, she's adjusting her shawl, maybe in collaboration with grandmother moon there, as a reminder to us. I mean, the moon to me is just a powerful reminder. I follow very closely in my own meditation practice. I kind of shape them around the phases of the moon, the relationship with the moon to other planets in the astrological charts. For me, it's like equally as powerful, and actually to me sometimes more powerful than using the tarot in terms of like shaping for myself, like how I'm relating and how my energies are connecting when I do a spirit journey. So yeah, that proposition doesn't surprise me at all. But now I want to almost take notes or do research events over the past years along with a new moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
And well, it's interesting that it showed up at the ending. Actually, do me a favor. Put your mute on for a second.
Me?
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that as far as the see, it fits. It's your fault. No, but as far as the moon showing up, like I feel like spirit is sort of saying that there is some sort of a connection that we need to be aware of. I don't know what that is. Do you mind if I just do some cards on that? And you can unmute yourself while I'm doing cards and like talk. Turn on your sound, Dan. Turn it on.
I don't want to interfere any longer.
You're not
No, it is. I'm going to turn it back off.
You have to talk eventually. Why the moon? I'm kind of asking, like, why the moon? Oh, I'm getting like an emotional thing. See, I'm using the deck of characters. I'm getting some sort of a vibration that's sort of coming out and punching through to us right now. So it's like some vibration that we're getting from moon energy that's punching through. And it's an emotional thing where we are spiritually trying to adjust or get rid of things that no longer serve us, like throw that stuff in the dumpster. There could be an emotional element to this for some people. And then I get, all right, this might be physical. I'm a little scared. So I would like your take on this, but I'm getting the flip of the compass, the flip north. That's like a shift there, a polar shift, kind of. There's a shift of something slightly, like north isn't north, there's a flip that may cause conflict. I don't know if all right, this is what I do know, Dan. I have read a lot of articles that already, like our north is slightly shifted, like our north 20 years ago is not the north now, which could be a normal thing, but they are noticing that there's a slight shift. Now, that's not like a huge, devastating polar shift, but there is a sense that true north has shifted slightly. That's a fact. You can Google that. But this, we had asked, I said there would be a problem with water. And I think of the moon as controlling tides and oceans. And they're saying something about it's a time that things are going to be vibrating differently, where there's going to be some sort of elimination of something. Maybe that's the moving of the shawl. And there could be some sort of flip in the direction that could cause conflict. Maybe something shifting a little bit more that puts things a little bit off kilter. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know what's coming up for me is I think that again I referred to some of the visions or the messages or the sense that I've gotten over like coming decades that I think that as the system itself starts to the economic system and the political system starts to break down, a large part of that is that as more and more of us wake up to the fact that we've gone past the point of no return. Some kind of like environmental is there like a word for like enviro-political is like some I mean what many of us may have dreamed about, like the Greenpeace people, right? It's like almost like the Greenpeace people, the Greenpeace people on their boats, right?
Yeah.
Will like folks of that ilk and those like movements will actually begin to gain power at some time in the future. And again, I'm picturing like how they used to chase the whale boats, the
Whale
Greenpeace.
boats.
Yeah. So that water image is coming up for me right now. And that's actually a big Capricorn thing too, because Capricorn is about institution, right? So to the extent that we're having this conversation around what's the future for us in our relationship with the earth, meditating that on a moment where where this equinox is in Capricorn, um, again, reminds me of those, like the breaking down of institutions. A lot
And
of,
maybe that's the flip. Your
yeah,
direction, your
yeah,
true north direction is going to flip.
right,
You're going to eliminate the things that no longer serve you. So
right,
maybe that's the message there.
right, right.
Um,
No.
Interesting. Mama, I remember Greenpeace.
They're still
Greenpeace
around.
is they're still active.
They're
They're
still
still
around.
active.
Still,
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I have this deck of cards, an oracle deck called the Shaman's Dream, and just as you were doing your draw there, I pulled this card called the Covenant, Sacred Contract, which is reminding me of you were talking about that Page of Pentacles, and we're really like children. And as we start to reshape our relationship with the earth, it's like we're maybe for the first time as a species going to establish, in the modern era at least, in the coming decades, an actual meaningful contract. What we can do, what we cannot do. Maybe it's around how we manage our water supply, right?
Mhm.
To that water image. So that's very, I think, resonant with what you've been discussing, and very Capricorny as well.
And very Capricorny.
A contract.
And I kind of feel, and when we talk about the shifts, I always felt like when you talk about things we can do, we can't do. I know a lot of people worried about freedom, like don't tell me what to do, but that's a very like kid thing to do, like don't tell me what to do. But when we grow up, we also know we have to put boundaries on things. And
Right.
I do feel like there may be some people who feel that we're having less freedoms. But I'm actually feeling that's what we're coming to. But maybe the difference is it's more collective. It's a feeling that the majority of people agree
Right.
we all have to do this for the greater good.
Right. But less freedom. Yes, it's very adolescent, right? I mean, ultimately, I think the question that's coming to my mind is like, what do we really all need, right?
Mhm.
What does each of us individually actually really need? I've been someone who is, I'm a big traveler. I've traveled all over the world over the course of my life, and I've loved visiting places I've visited. But now I've gotten to a point where I visit a new place and then I come home and I'm like back home. And now I'm realizing it's so beautiful here and I have everything I need where I am, you know? And that to me is a more, if I may say so, mature, version, outlook of the world. I don't need to like jet around all the continents, you know? So what do we really need? And so I think again, as a our ancestors certainly had a better appreciation of need, right? And what do we really ultimately need? And we've gotten that really out of whack, Karen,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, a sense of what we need, and that's the lesson that Page, that youngster that we still are, I think needs to learn.
Yeah. To
Yeah,
focus on what she needs and not what she wants.
right, right.
So we're right around that time. I would love you to end with a meditation,
Yeah,
and I will mute myself so that we won't get the feedback.
okay.
And I think while you're doing the meditation, I would also like to pull a couple oracle cards, just to kind of pull together some final thoughts from what comes from the meditation.
And you'll close with that. Okay.
We'll close with that.
All right. I will do that. Let's see, what time are we on? So I know where we're at. Oh, so we're up. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Carrie, for this. It was very organic conversation that we had, um, starting with our memories of our childhoods and how we were connected ourselves to the earth in a very simple, innocent way. And we talked about safety, right? How that was the little child in the woods experiencing that sense of safety and connectedness. And we talked a lot about, I don't know, sense of somewhat of hopelessness that as a species we've done significant amount of damage on the very delicate balance of the system, the ecosystem around us, and that some of those changes are now beyond repair. And then we've been imagining some decades from now, a century from now, will things start to change? Will we, as the human race, begin to establish a more balanced relationship, a balanced covenant, contract with the earth? Yeah. So as we do this meditation, we find ourselves on the threshold of the equinox. This is a time when, whether you're on the north of the earth, the south of the earth, the light and the dark are equal. And so as we enter into this space, reflecting on our relationship with the earth, we're reminded of that sacred balance of giving and taking. Giving and taking. The air, the water, the nutrients of the soil, giving and taking. The moon above going through her cycles, pulling the tide in, pulling the tide out, giving and taking, giving and taking. As we sit here now, we are in Sagittarius, and maybe we can allow that archer to launch us into the sky. Imagine ourselves rising very quickly from wherever we are seated up into the sky. You look down below on our neighborhood, on the landscape that's familiar to us because we are passing through it each day, going about our business. But now as we rise above that familiar landscape, we suddenly see patterns that we may not always appreciate. We see the system, we see the relationships. We begin to establish or reestablish an appreciation for the giving and taking. The giving and taking. We fly further up into the atmosphere and beyond. We now find ourselves orbiting above the Earth itself, between the Earth and the Moon. And now consider that perspective. If we can look down and see the entire system, that beautiful, delicate balance, that thin layer, that gossamer layer of life that we share, that thin layer of giving and taking, giving and taking. And we notice the moon and the earth and their relationship, giving and taking, giving and taking. Imagine ourselves leaping through time as we look down upon the earth. We're observing the earth 100 years hence. 100 years hence. A century of giving and taking, giving and taking. If we are now learning to maintain a more balanced and fair contract, sacred contract of giving and taking, what do we see? What do we see below? How does the earth look? What's the change in the color blue, the colors of green and brown and white, giving and taking? As we hold in this space just now, let us make a commitment that for the rest of our own precious time on this earth, we are committed in our own small way to shifting humankind's sacred covenant with the earth and with each other and with nature around us. We can't stop the change from happening, but we must be part of that new covenant. And make that commitment here and now as the equinox in Capricorn is upon us. Make that commitment. And you can drift back down to the surface of the earth, through the atmosphere, through the clouds, skimming above your neighborhood, coming back down into your own body again, in this space, in this conversation, talking about our relationship with the earth. And maybe after this video is ended, we can each take a moment to journal, write, do some poetry on that theme of that commitment that we are making for that future. Well, I feel hopeful, Karen. I feel hopeful. Thank you for being there with me.
My message while you were doing that is hopeful, because we are beginning to see the truth with the Ace of Swords. We're cutting through, dare I say it, the bullshit, as you would like to say. And we're starting to see the truth of our relationship with the earth. It might not be as positive as it could have been.
Yeah.
And we're going to do something about it. There are going to be a lot of people who are moving their energy in the right direction. I think sometimes we focus on the people who don't want to do that out of greed, but most of us on the planet get it and or will be getting it. And that final message here from the angel deck is, you are protected from all types of harm. The worst is now behind you. I ask you to relax and feel safe. I think what stood out for me is that you are okay. You're protected from harm. Someone said, well, the people in Morocco weren't protected from harm. And I think what I'm getting here is that we're okay. Just like Mother Earth was adjusting her shawl, she's a planet. She's going to be okay. So will we. Because this is just a body. This is our little coat. This is our shawl. We're eternal beings. You know, our energy does not end. And for that reason, you're always going to be okay, no matter what, in the shift. We're very similar to Mother Earth. So it'll be interesting to see that new contract that develops. That's what I'm getting. As always, Dani, the best time there with you.
You know, my favorite, I always end by saying, be lighthearted, and you're not alone. So I say that again. No one's alone. We're all on this ship together, right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, maybe the ship is sinking a little bit, but that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Back to the water.
I've got a big bucket, so I'm going like this.
Yeah.
No, but that's what's most important.
No.
That's what's most important.
Thank you again for inviting me into the space. And I, as usual, I always have a plan for the meditation, and then I never do what I planned because Spirit takes me another direction. So
it was the contract theme and the moon and the whole thing. It was there. It was. Yeah. That's why I love that. Yeah. I hope you come back on my channel again. Maybe we'll talk about some other controversial topic.
Okay.
Which we burst everybody's bubble.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Seriously.
All righty.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye, everyone. Be lighthearted. Be lighthearted.